What's up, guys, and welcome back to the podcast. My name is Robbie Cassidy, and today we are going to discuss how language affects your body. Again, how you speak to yourself can actually have an effect on your rehab, injuries, and overall well-being as well, and how the body can change and adapt to the type of language that it's getting back from you, or that it hears you, either internally, how you talk to yourself, or externally, how you talk to other people about your body. Now, before I jump into this, I want to put out a quick note that if anybody is looking for to get over, let's say, a long-term injury, if you've been struggling with back pain, hip pain, shoulder pain, whatever it is, and you find that you're training with the handbrake on, or you find that you're just not able to get to the level that you want to get to, or maybe you're not training at all because you've an injury that's gone on for, let's say, a couple of months, a couple of years, whatever it is, and you just finally want to get over it. Well, that's the client base that I deal with on a general basis. And what we do and what we focus on is we take a holistic approach to it. Education is a huge part of it. So anyone that's listening to the podcast will get an understanding that I do like to talk about the theory of it and what you're doing, so that you have an understanding of what you're doing, as opposed to just saying, here's a group of exercises, go off and do those. And then outside of that, we look at everything else. So we look at your sleep, we look at your hydration, we look at why you're doing exercises, let's say certain exercises that you might be able to do throughout the day. Maybe look at stress management and recovery and how you can include that to get, I suppose, to take a comprehensive approach to your rehab and then to your performance. Because in a general sense, we usually transition from rehab to performance very, very quickly. In some people, it's been 2 weeks. In others, it's been, let's say, 7, 8, but the majority of my clients, and I think is, when I looked back at the stats last year, I think it's over 85% return to their activity within 6 weeks, and that's the average. Obviously, a lot of people get that way before that. So as I was saying, 2 weeks is also very common. So if it's something that you need help with, definitely reach out. You can either send me an email at mobilitytutor.com, or you can just write to me on Instagram if that's the easiest place to get in contact, or for you to get in contact with me. Outside of that, my website is mobilitytutor.com, so you can check through that, look at testimonials, whatever it is, and see if it's the right fit for you. But what we'll do is we'll jump on a call, see how everything's going, and then if we're the right fit for each other, we'll go forward. So that is that. So I guess what we'll jump into first is, why is language important when it comes to rehab and when it comes to health? Now, as you may have heard me talking about in other podcasts, having a positive mindset and having an optimistic mindset when it comes to rehab is extremely important, because what we're looking at is, we're not just looking at it in like an airy fairy way. Oh, let's speak to yourself and you're going to get better. Now there may be premise to that, but when I talk about it, I'm talking about how it actually affects your nervous system specifically. Now, the way we speak to ourselves is going to have a direct effect on our emotions, our attitudes, our motivation, our mood, and our thought processing as well. So, and just to name a few. So when you think of it that way, if it's going to affect your emotions, your emotions are going to be taken up by your central nervous system. And depending on how you feel about something, it's going to change and adapt to that. And I guess the easiest way to talk about it is, if you've slept poorly the night before, okay, and your mood is down and you're kind of in a pissed off mood, well, what you will notice is that your foot or your knee or whatever injury you have, the pain will be way higher, okay? And if you're angry, your shoulders might get sore, your back might get sore, or it might start to flare up a small bit more if you've anger gone on a long time. Or if you are, let's say, walking at night, stepping a piece of Lego, because you're in a shock, you go into shocked mode, that just goes through the roof, the pain of that, okay? And there's a lot of reason for that. There's other reasons in that, like, obviously you can't visually see what it is and your body perceives it as a higher threat. But in a general sense, your emotions are going to dictate the threat level that your body feels as well. So if you don't have control of your emotions, well then at times they can be overwhelming, they can affect your mood, they can affect your motivation as well. And in turn, then that's going to affect what you actually do, let's say on a physical of, let's say, the actual getting out and doing the rehab. It could be on an emotional level, in that you just aren't feeling up to it, your pain levels are higher, you're feeling like you just will never get over it, you're feeling hopeless. And then, as I said, your nervous system will react to that. It'll change how it perceives an area. So if you have injured your knee a couple of times, if you've injured your back a few times, and you see it it's very common with back injuries and shoulder injuries, that when you have such a conscious awareness of an area, but then you have a negative inclination towards it, so you think more negatively towards it when you think about it, and I'll talk as we go through it how that may present. But what will happen is your body will adapt to that, so your sensitivity will increase around that area because it's protecting it. So if you have a back injury and you're always thinking about how much of a bad back you have, well then that in turn is going to turn up that sensitivity, and you're going to get pain at a lower threshold. Okay, so, and if it's your first podcast, this is probably new to you. But if it's not your first podcast and you've listened to a couple of podcasts, and it'd be worth, if it is, just listen back a few more or pick out a few ones that you would be interested in. The pain experience is a big one that just goes into a lot more depth. But in general, I talk about it mostly. I talk about sensitivity, and basically if that sensitivity is very high, once you get stressed out, once you sleep poorly, once your hydration is bad, well then that area is going to start kicking up a small bit more. And what we are doing at times is we use that language of it's a bad back, we have let's say it's never getting better. Well then that's only going to, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, I guess you could say, in that you are talking about it so much, you're so consciously aware of it, you don't move it as much anymore, so the activation changes around the area, how your body coordinates that area will change, and how it uses it obviously will change. And then in turn what you're going to get after that is you're going to get severe pain with small movements, and the muscles will weaken around the area as well. So you'll have a high sensitivity with a lot of weak muscles, and that's what we are looking at doing when we change our languages, to change how we perceive the area. So if your nervous system perceives it as a threat, well then it's going to be very painful, and it's going to be sore, and it's going to get weak. But if it doesn't perceive it as a threat, then you will be a lot more confident in it, and you'll be stronger. The muscles will be activating properly around the area, not activating properly, but they'll be more coordinated. You will be stronger, and in general, your body will be a lot more confident with itself. Okay, so that's why it's important to use the right language when it comes to rehab. Now, I guess some of the main issues that I see with people is, and as I touched on there, is actually speaking about a specific body part as if it's fragile, and speaking about their own body as if it's fragile. And the thing about it is, like, it's very easy for me to sit here and just say, this is what you need to do, and this is what you need to change. But these habits didn't develop overnight, and these beliefs didn't develop overnight. And because of that, it can take a good bit of time to change. Okay, and it may be that you've had so many injuries in that area and so many flare-ups that you just have lost all confidence. Okay, and that you just think it's not worth it anymore to try. It's not worth it anymore to exercise because it just keeps getting worse every time. Now, the thing about it is it getting worse every time? Most likely it's not actually getting worse, but that sensitivity is increasing. You're getting more flare-ups because you've higher sensitivity, and then it becomes not worth it. And then, as I'll talk through it, the way people talk about it can actually really affect that as well. The more flare-ups that happen, people can use catastrophize, I guess is what it's called, or with how severe the actual flare-up is. And it's just language that they hear other people using to describe it, so they start using it to describe it, and it's a bit vicious cycle then of it can actually get a lot worse because of that. But as I said, these things, this fragility mindset in general, didn't just pop up overnight. It's usually after recurring injuries. It's usually after repeated flare-ups and just losing confidence in the body. Some things I commonly hear is I have a bad back. Everyone in my family had a bad back. I have a gammy knee. That's my weak knee. Unstable shoulder, or my bad shoulder. Or something like I always get injured in that area is another big one. Okay. And another one that I hear people, and this is kind of moving from, let's say, the general population to people that have chronic injuries, they start talking about it, my chronic pain. So they're owning it, it's theirs now. And that idea of my chronic pain can have an effect on how your body perceives it, because then it's supposed to be there. When you start using that language, then it slowly but surely develops into a belief. That's the way it is. My chronic pain, the same as my left foot or my right arm. That type of when you really own that belief, then you have to address that to get over it long term, and it's going to take a while to get over that long term. But it's I guess it's twofold. It's on a lot of the time it can come from practitioners and how they talk about it and how they diagnose things with chronic pain syndrome, or it could be that they diagnose it as recurring injury or non-specific low back pain, or they diagnose it as some crazy things like just a bulging disc causing pain. Facet joint a lot of the time is another one you hear. Well, even though that works both ways, degenerative disc disease is a big one. No relation to pain whatsoever at all. There's more things going on than just that. So I guess you need to look at how you are speaking about it in that way. Are you calling it a bad back? Are you calling it a gammy knee? Are you saying an unstable shoulder? That type of stuff is not going to help how your body perceives that area, because it's going to perceive it as broken. Okay, and if you feel that your body's broken, well, it's going to be a lot less confident in itself. Now, outside of that, I always look at catastrophizing. Catastrophizing is something I see with lots of clients. I see in the general population, you see it very often, where somebody will use, and it's not even conscious, I don't think. A lot of the time, they'll just use what they've heard other people say, and it kind of fits the narrative of what they're trying to describe. So they'll say they're crippled with pain. Now, let's just take a step back for a second. If you were crippled with pain, you wouldn't be able to move at all. And I know there's probably people listening to this and they're saying, exactly, that's what it was. Well, what about if you actually needed to go to the toilet? Were you able to get up and go to the toilet, or did you have to use a nappy? Most likely you didn't have to use a nappy, I would think. Some people would be that severe, but in a general sense, using that language, crippled with pain, is a dangerous thing to play with, because it's so severe. And they'll usually use that about their back. I was crippled. That's when it's usually used. And what that's associated with, or what it resonates with, is not something that you want to be feeding into your body. You don't want to be thinking about that all the time. So really, really important to watch that language. Debilitating pain is another one. Now, there is instances that people will have debilitating pain. Like, let's say if it's a very severe injury, let's say a compound fracture, that you could say debilitating pain. If it's like an amputee or something like that, a crush injury, something like that, that it's actually extremely severe, then I have no problem with people using this language. But this idea of what I'm trying to get to here is the underlying idea of catastrophizing it, making it as bad as it could possibly be in your mind. Now, it's either for, it's the thing is, are you doing it for other people, and they're like for them to accept you or to kind of be empathetic towards you? Are you doing it for yourself because the pain is very high? The thing is, like, pain, no question, gets extremely high. I'd be a liar if I said that I didn't struggle with these things, and if I didn't use this language at times as well. But with this, like, if you sprain an ankle, like, that's very sore. You know, it's pretty sore to sprain an ankle. Or if you injure your shoulder, injure your knee or your hip, it's definitely a sore thing. But in general, it's very high at one stage, and then it starts to ease off, because it's not optimal for the body to give you extreme levels of pain all of the time. It's not, because it uses a lot of energy. And the body's about survival. It's not about giving you trouble. It's about trying to survive. So really important to watch how you are talking about it. Now, other things, I guess, can't walk, can't move. There are two other ones there. I guess they tie into that crippled with pain. or someone who says the pain is always there all of the time, because you need to just watch how that is now. Is it, if you're just sitting here at the laptop not moving at all, is that pain at the same level? Is it very high? Or when you start moving around, does the pain ease a small bit? Okay. And then when you sit down, it kicks up again maybe. If there's a certain movement that relaxes it when you're sleeping, is the pain there? A lot of the time not. And if you are getting severe pain at nighttime when you're in bed, then that's I guess what you say, a red flag in what you should go and get medical assistance if that is the case. So, and what I mean is excruciating pain at nighttime. And that idea of pain always being there, crippled with pain, debilitating pain, can't walk, can't move, that's all going to play into how the body is perceiving that. And that's why an injury like a back injury can go from a, let's say, 4-week muscle strain that would improve to a 3-year chronic back issue, because of the way they start to perceive it. That's how one thing goes to the next, is how you are perceiving it and how you are talking about it all the time. Now, outside of that, then I would say another issue that people do is they use hopeless terms, and the hopeless terms come from a lot of the time they come from like repeated injuries. They come from, it's not something that you just have a hopeless term, like you're not just going to start using or become completely hopeless after like one injury. Well, hopefully not anyway. But they come from repeated injuries, recurring injuries. And what I mean by this is it'll never get better, or I've tried absolutely everything and there's nothing that works. Well, that you're writing everything off then if you start using that language, and how your body's going to react to that is not going to be very, it's not going to be optimal, is it? So you've kind of signed your contract already, or you signed your warrant, but that's the way it is. There's no way it can be. And I get it all the time on Instagram. I actually had a lady write to me during the week who just said I had to come to grips with the fact that I'll never get better again. And it was back pain is what she had. It wasn't like she had terminal cancer or something that is very severe, or a chronic illness. But it was just that it had gone on so long for her that, and she had felt that she tried a lot of different things, that had then become, that was it. There was nothing else that was going to work, and there was no point trying anymore. And it's a sorry way to live. It's a sad way to live, that when it comes to that. And I hope that if anyone is struggling with that hopelessness, that definitely reach out to me. There's ways that you can improve and get back to things that you can like, and even if you're 10% better in a couple of weeks, that's good. That's positive. It's better than being 10% worse. And we need to look at it that way, what way we can do it, what way we can get better. So now that I've talked about how speaking to your body, it can be a dangerous, or how you speak to your body is can be dangerous in some ways, and how it can actually affect the extent of an injury. We'll look at it from the opposite side of things. Okay, so you can actually speak to your body and speak to yourself to improve. Okay, and to start off on a little anecdote, I guess, is there's a physician in the 20s, a French physician, Émile Coulet, and he used to get his patients to repeat an affirmation when they were in the hospital bed, and it was basically that every day in every way I'm getting better and better. That was the affirmation that he used, and it worked extremely well. And I've talked about this before on other podcasts, and I don't want to just be throwing out random stats, but I think it was like a 15 to 20% improvement in recovery time from doing it. But there's not a lot of research backing that anymore, and obviously at the time it wouldn't have been as rigorous, but it still goes to show that you should look at, if possible, because it's not going to take you any time, including affirmations, and how they can actually help your body and how they can help your mood. Because think about it this way: if it's helping your mood and it's helping your motivation and it's changing your emotions and how you feel about the area, well, that's going to promote immune function. It's going to promote how your body reacts. It's going to promote, are you in a stressful state or are you in more of a recovery state? And I've talked about that before on about the nervous system and how that can have an effect. So if you can take yourself out of a fight or flight and into more of a rest and digest, well, then you're in more of a recovery state to help heal yourself. And that's what you need to do, is to help and heal yourself. So using that type of affirmation can be very effective. But I guess the first step in this, in finding the solution and what helps you, is you need to become aware of it. Because if you're not aware of how you speak to yourself, if you're not aware of these little phrases that you're saying, or little sentences that you use, little sayings you have, then it's going to be difficult to make change to them, because you can't change something you're not aware of. And I did a podcast with Stop Chasing Pain, which is Dr. Perry Nicholson, a while ago, and we talked about that as well. We talked about that in actually great detail, about how you speak to yourself, and becoming aware of different things in the body and becoming aware of your emotions can help to improve your prognosis and improve your your healing phases, improve everything and how the body works. So if we look at just first becoming aware of what the issue is, and then you can start to change it step by step. If you catch yourself saying it, use an affirmation to overcome that. Now, I would say notice the small habits, like those little sayings, and then how you reinforce the issue that you have and reinforce the issue that you're dealing with. Like, are you saying to yourself all the time, I have a bad back, I'm not going to go training tonight because I have a bad back? Or now, if you have an injury, that's different. Obviously, you can't just talk yourself into being better. If you have a torn hamstring, you can do all the talking in the world. It will help. Let's say it will help to speed up the recovery process, but it's not just going to mend the hamstring because you're starting to talk to yourself and everything's better again. But if you do notice these small habits that you have, and how you chat to yourself and how you speak on what way the body is, well, then it's going to help you change your perception of the area and help the nervous system change its perception of the area. So as I said, notice the small habits and how you reinforce the issues. Well, how you can also reinforce this is using positive reinforcement. So if you go execute a task or achieve something that you haven't done in a while, or get back to an activity, or go out and kick ball for a small while and you haven't done it, making sure that you make note of that and reflect on that and say it to yourself as well. Talk to yourself about how actually it felt good today and I felt great this morning. I say that to clients, especially if every time we get on the phone, if they start saying, how are you? And then they start saying, no. I say, okay, let's take a small bit of a different approach that, or I will try, and I'll say, let's look back at the week. Did you get in whatever your run? Did you get back to the activity you were at? And if they say, yeah, well, I say, well, let's look at that as a positive then. So that's going to be the frame, that's going to be the foundation of our call. That's a positive. You've improved on something that you hadn't had before. And sometimes we get stuck in those just negative reinforcement or negative feedback patterns, and we're always just telling ourselves that things aren't getting better, even when they are improving. Objectively, they're improving. So you need to change that subjectively. Objectively, obviously, is something you can measure. Subjectively is, it's more, I guess, influenced by your feelings or your opinions. So if you find that somebody, like if you can connect objective improvements and then make sure that you reinforce them with subjective improvements, well, then you'll start to get a big improvement in everything that you do, and you'll start to notice them a small bit more, because we can get caught into that cycle of how are things, they're not great, and they haven't been great for a while. And that's it's the other thing is there's no problem. It's okay to talk like that, and it's okay to accept that sometimes things aren't going well for you, and there's no problem with expressing your emotions on that. But if you find that that's your go-to, well, then you've moved towards more of a negative mindset or a negative position on something that you're trying to help. And it is important to try overcome that, and positive reinforcement is a great way of doing that. One thing that I do, I guess, with clients is that we look at their identity when we look at injuries that they have, and we look at how we can change their identity towards how their body is. So if they have that identity of that their body is fragile, they always get injured, that things never work out, well, then it's going to be very difficult to make long-term change, or because you won't build the habits that you need to build, because they're not in line with the identity that you already have, that the body's broken. So there's no point having those habits. But if you have the identity of a body, or somebody who's a sports person who's strong, and I guess it comes back to like the easiest example to say is somebody who trains a lot or is a sports person or is fit, they have the identity of a fit person, so they don't find it very difficult to go and train. Okay, but if you don't have that identity, it's a lot more effort to go and train and to go out and try get a gym session in. But if it is something that you do consistently and that's part of your identity, and you say that I am a fit person, I always compete, or whatever it is for you, well then you're going to be more likely to train even on the days you don't want to train. Okay, because that's what your identity is, and if you want to live in line with that and live in line with your values, you have to have certain habits that follow that. So we always look at how we can change our identity on those things, and one that I'm working with at the moment, what we're trying to do is we're trying to change her identity from somebody who breaks down in times of stress to someone who is more resilient. And what would a resilient person do in this situation? And to be honest, we've seen improvements week in, week out. It takes time. The identity change isn't something that happens overnight, but we're just making small little changes to the programming that we're doing. To be honest, making it tougher and just getting the sessions in and then pushing through them when things get bad. And then reflecting on it and saying, well, okay, things might be bad right now. Okay, so like a lot of the time, let's say just before someone jumps on a call, something bad might happen, or they might have had a few issues over the weekend and they just haven't gotten over them. And when they jump on the call then with me, they're having problems with that. And it comes out then, and there's no problem. I'll talk through them or talk to them about it all the time. But what I will also do is we'll look back at the week and then we'll reflect on it, and we'll make sure that we bring up the fact that, well, you actually got 4 hard sessions in this week. And on top of that, you went out and you, let's say gardening, or you were working on the farm, or you were doing whatever you were doing, but you added that on top of it. It's like that's what someone who was able to handle high levels of stress, or that's what somebody who was very resilient and just pushed on and was able to get through things, that's what they would do. And it's huge when it comes to that, because then they can start to realize, well, actually I am doing these things, so this slowly but surely is becoming more of my identity. And then you start building in different tasks that they can do to help them as well. Okay, now to not get off track too much, but actually having them, how do we do that, is using affirmations, changing to like a growth mindset as well. And I guess I'll finish up on this this small bit here, but a growth mindset is huge when it comes to rehab and when it comes to performance and when it comes to life, I guess, in general. And it's something that I think that we should all learn as children, because it promotes optimism, it promotes a better quality of life, better mood, everything. And really what it is it's the belief that even though if you struggle with certain things, like a skill, and there's some ability or some type of sport or whatever, that it's not set in stone and that you can actually improve on that. That's really what a growth mindset is, that you can, even though you're struggling now, you can still improve on it, and you can always get better with it. And I guess what I've seen people use with kids in the past is how they explain it to them is, well, you weren't able to read at a certain stage, and then you struggled at that start, but then as you got better at it, you started to improve, and then you were able to read, and now you read all the time. Or you weren't able to, in the gym, you weren't able to lift the bar when you started, but now you are able to lift the bar and you can put 10 kg plates on either side of it, or 20 kg plates, or whatever it is on either side of it. So that shows improvement. When you started, it must have felt like you weren't going to get anywhere with it. But as you got through it, things started to improve, you started to get better, you started to get committed to it, and you did it more often, obviously, I should say. And then because of that, you got better at it. And that's what we need to look at when it comes to pain and when it comes to your body. You need to look at how, okay, grand, things are tough now, but I can get to where I want to be once I get a plan in place, I keep myself accountable, or someone keeps you accountable to it, and you are consistent and you're working in the right direction towards certain goals that you want to get to. Then you will get there. There's no question you'll get there. And you'll have an improvement, but you need to change all these small things along the way. And language and how you speak to yourself is a small one, but it's actually a huge one, because as I said at the very start, it's going to affect your mood, it's going to affect your attitude, it's going to affect your emotion, and it's going to affect your motivation to get things done. If you're not motivated to do things, you're less likely to do them. But if you have this growth mindset that things are getting better all the time, you're speaking to yourself positively about how, okay, I'm tight and sore, but I can maybe get this in because I know I have the next couple of days off, so I'm going to do it. Or someone asks you to go on a hike and you don't think about it and you just get it done. And you think about it after, geez, that was good. That was nice. I think if you can adopt that mindset, change the language that you are, how you speak to yourself, slowly but surely, you're going to get to where you want to get to. Whether it be in a rehab context that you're trying to get back from injury, or performance context, in let's say sports or whatever you're doing. Okay, you need to look at how you speak to yourself because it makes a huge effect on your body and your mind. So guys, that's everything I wanted to talk about today. I hope I hope people get an understanding of where I'm coming from with that and why it is important. It's something that I do with clients, is looking at how we speak about the language, or how we speak about different things, and how they think about the body is another huge one. And by making that change, even though small, you can see very big improvements very fast, because they'll just be more willing to get things done. And then on top of that, their body will perceive itself as stronger, it'll perceive itself as fitter, and it will look, or you'll have more motivation to work out and do all your sessions and do everything to stick to the plan. But then when you do start to see improvements, the confidence will build and it will multiply, it'll compound. So I would say start with something simple today, like an affirmation about how your body is strong, how it's capable, how you can do whatever you want. Even if you feel you're lying to yourself at the start, doesn't make a difference. Just keep saying it and build on that. Then watch how you speak about it to other people. When someone asks you, how's your back now? How's your ankle now? Oh, it's getting better. It's improving. It's always that. I wasn't able to do this before, now I'm able to do this now. If you do that, huge improvements very fast. But that's all for me today, guys. As I said at the start, if you need help with any of these issues or injuries, just send me an email at mobilitytutor@gmail.com, or write to me on Instagram, whatever is easiest for yourself. I'll be taking on clients before Christmas, and then most likely I'm kind of at the upper limit of the clients that I have at the moment. So we will see how that's going. But if you reach out to me, we can at least set up a call, and we can see if a place is freeing up in the next couple of weeks. You can jump on board. But that's everything for me, and I will let you all go. Last thing I will say is, if you wouldn't mind, guys, sharing this on your story, it goes a long way in promoting the podcast. It lets me know what you're interested in, and really, really helps me put out this information to more people who need it. There's a lot of people who are struggling with injuries, and there's a lot of people who are feeling hopeless when it comes to injuries, and I think that because of injuries have lost confidence in their body. And I think that if more people heard this, because I'm speaking here objectively, I'm not speaking one-to-one, I'm not speaking to you and saying this is something that you're doing wrong. This is something that I commonly see with a lot of people. So if more people get an understanding of that, then they'll be able to maybe think that, okay, it's not actually just me that feels like this. And they will be able to promote, or they'll be able to get back to doing what they want to do. And it'll, I guess, promote some motivation, or promote a bit of confidence anyway, that they can get back to doing what they're doing. So maybe send it to a friend who you think is who may have struggled with some of these issues in the past, or struggling with them now. And I would also love if you could subscribe on Apple and on Spotify, and leave a rating and a comment if you wouldn't mind. But yeah, that's everything, guys. I hope everyone's doing well out there, and that your winter is going well. I shouldn't say that, because I'm sure we'll be listening to this in a year's time, 6 months time. But anyway, hopefully it's going well. Chat to y'all soon. Have a good one.